Hi, I'm Tyson Franklin, and welcome to this week's episode of the Podiatry Legends podcast, the podcast designed to help you feel, see, and think differently about the podiatry profession. This is a solo episode. I don't have a guest for this one, and I've done this deliberately because this is the last episode for the year, for 2022, so you might be catching this in 2023. I thought it was important to touch on a few things that I think you need to focus on and carry through 2023 if you want to get the most out of it. So I'm actually titling this particular episode, It's No Secret There's Money in Podiatry. If you've been around for long enough, you would have known in 2014, I wrote a book called It's No Secret There's Money in Podiatry. So this talk, or this podcast that I'm doing, is not really about my book, but it's just some other concepts that I think you should take on board, because I do think it's true that it's no secret there's money in podiatry. And it's not that podiatry is all about money, but it is one of those things that if you are a good podiatrist, you provide good care to your patients, the money will flow towards you. Whether you're an employer, you own multiple businesses, or whether you're an employee, even good employees, money will flow towards them if they are good at what they do, they look after their patients. It just works that way. So what I wanted to talk about was, I think it's important for every small business, every small podiatry clinic, to realize that every big business began as a small business. So if you think about Apple, McDonald's, Facebook, they all started as small businesses. In fact, Facebook began as a simple program for Harvard students to basically connect with each other. Then it expanded to other colleges in the Boston area, then the Ivy League schools, and so on. It just grew from there. If you think about Nike, now that was started, two guys selling shoes from the boot of their car. And in the first year, they made $8,000. Now, look how big Nike is now, and they made $8,000 in the first year. Coca-Cola was created by a pharmacist, Dr. Pemberton, just after the Civil War in 1886. The first year in operation, he grossed $50. And he also spent $73.96 on advertising. So he actually made a loss that first year. And then, he never really got to see where Coca-Cola eventually went. But this is the thing that's really important, is whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right either way. And that's what Henry Ford said. He said, whether you think you can or think you can't, either way, you're basically right. So if you think there's money in podiatry, or if you think there's no money in podiatry, then you're basically right. Both people are right. Now, and I know some people will say, oh, you don't understand where my podiatry clinic is or who I work for is different. I understand that different clinics in different locations in different countries are different, but the overall factor that I think really changes what happens with people is their mindset. Now, if you think about it, for every person that maybe say they're doing it tough or saying, you don't understand my area, there's somebody else who is doing really, really well, probably in exactly the same type of location. And everyone would have seen a restaurant, for example, that is absolutely booming. And while one restaurant is closing, there's another one that is prospering and just setting records. Why do you think that is? Is the food better? Have they got a better chef? Are the staff better trained? And maybe they are. I think that they are all important factors. But I think the biggest factor is the attitude of the business owner. So I want to explain a text message that was handed over to me by somebody, by a podiatrist, and it was from another podiatrist in the Cairns area. And it says, sorry, I won't say their name, I received your CV and application for employment as a private podiatrist. Unfortunately, due to the poor economic situation in Australia, and in particular North Queensland, which is where I am, I'm afraid you have come looking for work at the worst possible time. Maybe in a decade, if the situation improves, then maybe it will be a different situation. People are leaving the north in droves, and it will be impossible to bring on a new podiatrist in this present situation. Best of luck in your search, such and such from their podiatry clinic. Now, what I thought was really interesting with this is the date that this text message was sent was the 17th of August 2016. I actually sold my podiatry clinic in Cairns on the 16th of August, the day before, for a record amount in podiatry for a single ownership podiatry clinic at the time. So this one person who was saying everything was doom and gloom, at the same time for me, everything was going really, really well. And I do think the attitude of the business owner has a massive impact on the outcome. So how do you make more money in your podiatry business? As an employee or as an employer, as a business owner? Now, you could pray. That can't hurt. A little bit of prayer never hurt anybody. But you also need to take action. And I think there's 3 action steps every small business owner needs to follow. 1, they need to set goals. You've probably heard it a million times before, but it is the truth. The second thing, they need to develop business systems. It's just so important. And the third thing is they need to understand marketing basics. If you don't understand marketing basics, you're going to get taken for a ride. And I think these 3 things are the key to actually making more and growing your business in 2023. Set goals around these particular areas. So let's look at the first one, setting business goals. And everyone's heard of that sporting analogy, why goals are needed. Without goals, the game would be pointless. Imagine a basketball game. You've got people just running up and down the court, throwing to each other, and there wasn't a net to put it in. Or a soccer match, and there were no goals at either end, and people just running up and down, kicking it, which sometimes when you're watching soccer, it feels that way, especially if it's a nil or draw. But even kids, when they're playing games in the backyard, they will normally have some form of goal set up. They'll have something that you've got to aim towards, because if you're not aiming towards something, it can be a waste of time. It can be a pointless activity, just doing the same thing day in and day out. There needs to be some form of direction. So it's important when it comes to your goals, you need to know what's your why. What's your purpose? What drives you? What gets you out of bed in the morning? What can get you excited that then flows over to your team and gets them excited? I'll share something with you, and I've shared this on a few podcasts recently, that my father died when I was 17, had no life insurance, had no will, and he pretty much left us in a bit of a financial pickle, which was really, really difficult at the time. Now, did he love us? Of course he did. But he didn't have any goals. He really just lived day by day. So my why, my big why that drove me and kept me motivated with my business, was not to do what my father did and to guarantee the financial security of my family. And that's pretty much what I did. The problem is we set goals and then we forget about them. And it's not because we don't want the goals. It's just life gets busy and we forget our why. You set up your clinic for a particular reason. You want to achieve certain things with it. You want to spend more time with your family. And the next thing, you're bogged down with seeing patients that you don't really want to see, certain patients you don't even like, and they are just dragging the life out of you. And you forget about the big reason why you set your business up in the first place. So I think it's important to go back and try and remember that. There's 3 strategies that I think you should do to try and keep goals top of mind. The first one, they call it like daily visualization. And how I know it sounds, if you've heard that before, it's like, ooh, a bit woo-woo. And I totally understand that. But what you want to do is not just see yourself achieving the goal, but you also want to see yourself striving and struggling to see the goal. So you might be where you are right now, and you might go, here's a vision of where I want to be in the future. And that's fine to have that. And a lot of people, they will see that and go, you know what? That seems unattainable. And there's nothing wrong with feeling that way, that some goals are unattainable. It should scare you a little bit. But what's important, you need to see that you're striving and struggling in between there. You know there's going to be obstacles. Think about those obstacles before you get there. It's really, I call it talking to your future self. When I was doing running for a little bit there, I knew that when I went running and I got to a certain point in my run, that I would be feeling a certain way. So I would have a conversation with myself. I go, when you get to here, you're going to feel like this. You have a choice. You can stop or you can do this. And I'd talk through the strategies on what I was going to do. And that's what I did. And that got me through the run. You can do exactly the same thing when it comes to setting goals and doing things with your business, is talk to your future self and know that if this happens, what are your strategies? Don't start thinking about what you're going to do when something goes wrong at the time it goes wrong, because it's really hard to have a clear head. Think about it beforehand. The next thing you need to have is like a weekly scorecard. I think it's really important to look at all the activity that you've done. Rank yourself. Give yourself a rating each day or each week. how did you go from 1 to 10? And it's not a time to beat yourself up. If you only gave yourself a 3, don't sit there and slap yourself across the head and say, oh, you only got a 3 this week, you loser. That's not what you want to say. It's a time to give yourself a realistic score. It's a time to reflect. It's a time to acknowledge errors. And it's also an opportunity to improve next week. And I know a lot of times as you head into the new year, you may set these certain resolutions or goals or things you're going to do. It could be with work, it could be health, fitness, family. And all of a sudden, life gets in the way. You start to drop the ball. And 6 weeks into it, you're sort of going, oh, I don't know why I bothered doing this. Wait, once again, I failed. Don't beat yourself up. Reflect, acknowledge the errors, and then make a reset and just start again. I know on February the 8th, I'll start my next 12-week podiatry business reboot. I've had so many people that have contacted me over the last 2 and a bit years that have been running it, saying, oh yeah, I'm really keen about doing that. I'm going to do it next time when you do it next year. And those same people never get back in touch with me. And they're probably still sitting on the fence, still wondering, should they or shouldn't they do it? If you're thinking about doing it, just do it. And that could be one of your goals for 2023 is start learning some new things that are going to make your business better. And I think even if you don't have a podiatry business, if you did the 12-week reboot and just learnt the information that I teach, you brought that back to your employer and said, hey, I want to implement some of this, you are worth more money to your business. You're worth more money to that particular business. And they are skills that you will take on, whether it's your own business in the future or if you're working with somebody else. The next thing you got to do, I think it's really important to share your goals, the things that you want to do, share them socially. I think it's important to share them with family and friends. Tell them what your goals are going to be. Share them with your business associates, the people that you work with. Tell them that this is what I want to do next year. If you're the business owner, tell your team, this is what I want, this is what we want to achieve next year, what I want to achieve personally, what I want to see, where I want to see the business in the future. And remember, when you're talking about your goals with your team, it's not about saying to them, oh yeah, I want to buy a new beach house. It's what is the business going to do for the community? Where do you see the business and where do you see them within that business? What do you see them achieving in the future? That will get them motivated, not your new car, not your holiday, not your new beach house. And I think another thing that you can do socially, if you're game, and I did this a few years back, is share your goals online. Share them on your Facebook page. At 1 year there, in 2017, I had them as my header on Facebook that these are my goals for 2017. And I put them up there. And I tell you, it was scary putting them up there. What was interesting, out of the 5 goals I put up there, 3 of the 5 I absolutely nailed and 2 I missed. And the 2 that I missed, I went, you know what? I reset them and I did them over the next couple of years. So number 2 was, so the first one was setting business goals. The second thing is develop business systems. You need to systematize every process in your business. And even if it seems really, really obvious. And a perfect example, and this is in my book. Now, if you haven't read my book yet, ask someone to get it for you for your birthday or put it on next year's Christmas list. You need to get yourself a copy and have a read. Remember, it's no secret, there's money in podiatry. You can't forget the title because that's the title of this particular podcast. So, developing systems. The simpler the task, the more open it is to interpretation. So it's like a cup of coffee. If you said to someone, would you like a cup of coffee? And they said yes, how do they want that cup? Are they talking instant? Are they talking a pod? Are you going to grind the coffee? If it is instant, how much do you put on the spoon? Do they have sugar? Don't they have sugar? Do they use sugar pills? Do they have milk? Do they have lactose-free milk? Do they have skim milk? So you can see, just from making a cup of coffee, something that is a very, very simple task, and we all have our own way of doing it, if you leave it open to interpretation, mistakes can occur. So, which is why you need to have it written down. And I think there's a couple of systems we're going to touch on right here that I think these are ones that you must have. I mean, there's tons of systems you should have in your business, and I help people put systems together. But the 2 that you need to work on straight away is every podiatry business should have a documented greeting system. How do you want to greet your patients when they walk through that front door of your business? And it should be really precise that everybody is doing exactly the same thing. Not like you're reading a script, but there's a certain set of motions that you actually go through that makes the patient feel really comfortable. Also, another system that is super important is, how do you want your phone answered? Do you want them just picking up the phone and going, oh yeah, g'day, how you doing? Or is there a certain script or pattern of speech that you want said, and is there certain information that you want to gather every time that somebody rings your practice. That is really, really important. I've seen businesses where I've been sitting in reception areas and I've heard 3 or 4, 5, 6 phone calls go through, and the receptionists are sometimes answering it all exactly the same way, giving the same information. I've been at other businesses where it's like I'm in 6 different businesses listening to 6 different phone calls. So really important, your greeting system and how the phone is answered. Because what you got to realize is you only get one shot at a first impression. And the first impression may be a phone call. The first impression might be them walking into your business the first time because they just happen to be going past. So be aware of that. And a lot of people ask, do systems really work? I've had some podiatrists say that they don't like systems or they're not into systems. And I think, okay, that's fair enough. If you don't want to have systems, you don't have to. But take a look at like McDonald's. It is a $1 billion company that is run by children. And these are the same kids that parents can't get to clean the room, yet they're running $1 billion business. And the reason they can run $1 billion business is because systems work. And a business that has systems in place, long term, will sell for more than a podiatry business that does not have systems in place. Because if someone was about to buy your business and they're looking through everything, they go, so how do you generate this revenue? What's your marketing plan? How do you do this? What happens when this occurs? You go, oh, no, it's fly by the seat of my pants. Normally I'm always here, so I just know how to put out all the fires. That's a scary proposition for someone thinking of buying your business. However, the value of my business when I sold it was technically I didn't need to be there. The business ran without me, even though I still went in there because I enjoyed being around the place. But a really well-run business can run without you, and that adds value to your business. I think it's important to remember, not every system needs to be written down. It could be a written system, but you might use photographs, you might incorporate videos, you might use audio to explain certain things. I could see it being very beneficial. We have a particular task on how to do something. Might be a written format. You might have a photograph that explains it. You might then have some audio that they can listen to later on to further explain it at a deeper level. So it's a combination: written, it could be photos, it could be video, it could be audio. It doesn't really matter. You could write the thing in crayons on big sheets of paper if you wanted to, as long as there's something there for people to follow. That's the important part. Now, the third thing that I think is really important with your business and to have a successful business is understanding marketing basics. I always say to people, would you dive into shark-infested waters without a cage, knowing there's sharks in the water? Highly unlikely that you would do that. But that's exactly what happens when some businesses set up and when they start actually trying to market their business. Whether it doesn't matter what form of advertising that you do, you need to understand the basics of marketing. And you also need to know who is educating you. If you're being educated about marketing by the same people who are selling you the advertising and marketing, you've got to be really, really careful. I actually think if you're acquiring marketing services off of somebody, they should be recommending courses or books to read so you can understand the marketing basics, so you don't get the wool pulled over your eyes. And I've seen that happen so many times where there might be a local magazine and somebody will spend $500, $1,000, $1,500 putting an ad in that particular magazine because it goes to so many people, and then they get nothing from it. And the reason they get nothing from it is because they didn't understand the marketing basics, the position or where that, whatever they were putting in that magazine, where it should have been. That's if they were doing a magazine. Even if it was an online magazine, it doesn't matter. There's so much thinking that goes into before you place any form of advertising and marketing. So start reading and getting better on this information. To give you an example is, do you know who your ideal client is? Do you know your demographics? Do you understand what niche marketing is? Do you know what your unique selling proposition is? Maybe your competitive point of difference, or do you have consistency in your message? And do you understand what consistency really means? Do you understand the difference between reach and frequency? Because a lot of times marketing people come to you and they'll tell you about the reach a particular magazine gets, or the reach that a particular ad will get if you put it in a particular area or a particular spot. Reach is great, but frequency and reach are the two things that go together. Do you understand what branding is and what branding is not? And do you have a good grasp on the 6 pillars of marketing? And are you doing all 6 pillars, or are you only doing 1 or 2 thinking the rest aren't important? So to give you a review of the 6 pillars of marketing, you've got professional referrers, non-professional referrers, internal marketing, external marketing, verbal marketing, and also online marketing. You need to have a really good understanding of what the 6 pillars of marketing are and how that applies to your business and how the 6 of them all actually work together. And do you understand what loading is? Because when you're going to place an ad or do some form of marketing somewhere, sometimes you will pay more money for it to be in a particular position or a particular spot because they know that more eyes will see it in a particular area. Now, if you understand all these terms, then you're armed with some pretty good knowledge. And knowledge, to me, in marketing is like having the shark cage around you. If you don't understand some of these terms that I mentioned, then you need to get educated. You need to start slowly building that cage around you. To review this, I'm just going to go over it again. You need to set business goals and you need to be looking at them on a regular basis and just keep remembering your why. And also be aware that things are going to come up. You're going to get obstacles, and these obstacles are going to try and derail you. You've got to have a system in place that just keeps you on track. The second thing is you've got to develop business systems, and you've got to start documenting what you're doing. And if you want, and the best thing to do is test them, is put some systems in place. Go away for a week and come back and just see, did your business burn down or it didn't? And if there were problems, you go, okay, that's great. Now we can fix them, and you just keep working on from there. And the third thing was actually understanding marketing basics. Now, I don't have any online marketing workshops or live workshops organized right now, so I can't say, hey, go to this and sign up for my next marketing workshop. Don't have any in place. But what I do recommend is read my book, It's No Secret There's Money in Podiatry. You're already listening to the podcast. Dig into the podcast as much as you can. I do another podcast with Big Jim McDonald, and it's called Podiatry Marketing. Go and check that out. But keep an eye out for when I am doing my next marketing workshop is do it. I'll tell you right now, what you'll learn by doing marketing workshops, whether it's from me or from other people, even if you pick up 1, 2, 3 things that you can apply back to your business, it will just make a huge difference. And I also, when I do the 12-week Podiatry Business Reboot, I do touch on marketing a lot through that 12 weeks or over that 12-week period. So you're guaranteed to learn stuff there as well. So I hope you enjoyed this podcast. I know it's not a very long podcast. It is a solo show, so you had to listen to me ramble on the whole time. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. Send me an email, tf@tysonfranklin.com, and I will help you where I can. Go to my website, tysonfranklin.com, have a read through everything that's there. And if you're really enjoying this podcast and you've enjoyed it over 2022 and you know what, I'm going to be listening to this right through 2023, please tell your podiatry friends, unless you don't have any, but most podiatrists do. And the podiatrists that are on this, that listen to this podcast, usually are always very friendly podiatrists. Tell your podiatry friends it exists. And if you're really enjoying it, please leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or whatever your podcast platform is. So before I finish up, just want to let everybody know that next week's episode is going to be great and one that I think everyone will tune into. It's going to be titled How to Improve the Podiatry Profession. I've got a number of podiatrists who have come on who are sharing their ideas because this has been a big topic lately within the association, the Podiatry Association, here in Australia, but also overseas. This is a topic that everybody wants to know how to improve the profession. And I know that the podcast that comes out next week is just going to scrape the surface, and it'll be a topic that we're going to talk about again, and again. So that's it for me this week. I want you to look after yourself, look after your family, and I will talk to you again next week. Bye for now. So you may have been wondering if I was going to do a little secret message at the end of this particular episode, and yes, I am. If this is the first time you actually noticed I have a message at the end of each podcast. I've only been doing it again for probably about the last 5 or 6 weeks, but I intend to do it more often on the weekly shows. So the message for this particular episode, or for this week, is become fantastic with your core offering. And what I mean by that is have a look at your business, have a look at the other businesses in your particular area, the other podiatrists, and what's one thing that you think you do better than everybody else, and it's something that you actually enjoy doing in podiatry or treating your patients with, or a product or service. And have a look at that and try and make that your core offering. Try and make that something that makes you stand out from everybody else, and makes you become known in your area for that particular service or product. There's podiatrists that have been on this podcast who really love wounds or wound care, and they've become renowned for that particular area of podiatry. There's others that, yes, it's been orthotics. There's some that has been wart treatment. Just find that core offering that you can offer to the community and that you can sort of build your business around. And also, it's one of those things that you need to have an interest in that particular area. If it's something that you don't particularly like, even if you know that you could make money from it, it's probably not something that you should be doing. I knew when I had my clinic that, yes, there was a big need for wound care and ulcer treatment, but it was not something that I enjoyed doing. So it wouldn't matter how much money I was offered to do that. It was not something that I was going to highlight in my business. So just think about that. What is your core offering, and become really, really fantastic at that. Okay, I'll talk to you next week. Bye.